On today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast, our top 5 Sabres villains of all time. And also, we'll preview the Sabres matchup with the New Jersey Devils coming your way on Thursday night. That's ahead on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase and Jordan Hansgen.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Joe DiBiase and Jordan Hansgen coming to you today. I was about to say coming to you live, but we are not live. But you can watch us. You can do that. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 by the end of the month. We're getting there. We got about 11 days left. It's Jordan, kind of interesting. I'm actually got the NBA playoffs on a different screen right now. This is the first time ever where the NBA playoffs has started this early, because I feel like the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs always line up, but that's not happening this year because we've got 2 weeks left of the NHL season.
I think it's more the NHL ended late.
Okay,
because
of
all delays. Yeah, I think it's more of an NHL thing. I think NBA, because NHL usually would end first week of April, and they would start playoffs second week of April.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we're not starting till really May 1st, May 2nd. I think it's the first day. All right.
Yeah, so Stanley Cup's going to be after the finals, which is interesting.
I think like that.
It might be about this. It might be about the same. Because I know no, probably not. Because the NBA, I know, does that thing where it's like the finals will start in 2 weeks.
Right.
Like, what?
June 2nd is game 1 of the NBA finals. The Stanley Cup final begins on, hold for it, you'd think it'd be easier to find.
Hockey usually doesn't. I feel like the NBA sets their dates and hockey usually doesn't, I feel.
Yeah. I don't have the dates, but that's all right. It was originally, they're set to end on June 30th. So if you're working backwards, it's tough to do. A couple weeks. Yeah, it'll be about the same. It'll be a couple weeks after the NBA finals. I like that because I'm someone who loves the first 2 rounds of the NHL playoffs over the NBA playoffs. But as the playoffs progress, we romanticize the NBA finals, right? Like, we judge legacies based on titles. We judge legacies in the NBA based on the finals. And in the NHL, I feel like that's not really as much the case.
Yeah, I think so. I think, even though I don't know though, like, I always grew up like the Stanley Cup was like I think it has the best trophy presentation of any sport.
Well, that's for sure. I guess I mean more like, when you talk about,
when you think of players, like, you don't really care that Ovechkin only won one.
Right. Like, yeah,
he got one.
If you think of Charles Barkley, one of the first things you'll think about with Charles Barkley, maybe the first thing, is never won a title. Whereas, if you think about what's Joe Thornton's legacy, you'll get to eventually, he never won a Stanley Cup, but you'll get to maybe 5-6 things before that, like, amazing passer, knew how to use his body, what a beard, but great with the Bruins back in the day. Like, you get to a couple different things. I feel like you're not judged solely just based on what you do, championship-wise, rings in the NHL.
Yeah, I think that's right.
We've got a topic today that's it's brewed. It began in the NBA playoffs. Our top 5 Sabre villains of all time. We are going to get to that coming up here in just a second, and then a little bit later on, we will preview the Sabres matchup on Thursday night with the New Jersey Devils. It's not just the NBA playoffs that kind of started this idea to do our top 5 villains. Tonight, we're recording this on Wednesday, Jack Eichel and the Vegas Golden Knights play against the Washington Capitals, Johan Larsson's Washington Capitals. And if the Golden Knights lose, they will drop to below 5% to make the postseason. Below 5% to make the postseason. That's wild.
That was a fist bump for the YouTube crowd. But yeah, I mean, go Caps.
It's crazy. It's crazy they might not even make it to the final.
They're not very good. Like, I don't think they're very good at all. Every time I watch them, I'm like, I don't see it.
Yeah.
I know they've had kind of the season from hell, so to speak. Like they've definitely had the awful campaign where they've just had injury after injury after injury. And their trade was disallowed.
Yeah.
They have not had a good season. But I would also say that it's the season kind of that they forced their own hand. Like they made this a disaster because they got way too into like player movement. We got to get the next big thing. We got to get the next big thing. Like, I don't know if they should have been in the Eichel market.
They didn't have the cap space to do it. And
right.
They're harming themselves on the cap by doing it. I guess I kind of want it to be his fault. I guess
his fault.
Deep down, I don't truly believe it. I don't truly believe that it is his fault. It's injuries, right? It's injuries, it's goaltending.
It's not his fault, but it is like, I don't think the grass is as much greener as he thinks it is in Vegas.
I think they'll be great next year.
Great?
Yeah, I think they'll be great. I hesitate to say that a little bit, but I would bet on them. I'd bet on them for sure being a playoff team, and I would bet on them being like a top 3 team in their division.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to get easier out there. I think the Avalanche are going to be good for a while.
Yep. See, honestly, the more I thought about that, even if they did squeak in, it's going to get slaughtered by Colorado anyway. It's the difference between pick 16 and 17.
Right.
I guess at the end of the day, who cares? Well, we want it. We think it's funny, right? Like I think it's funny that Eichel would not make the playoffs after going to a Stanley Cup contender. I mean, I've been having fun with it. I've been trolling. I'll admit it. I've been trolling. I had that tweet today. It was 100% cherry picked. 100% cherry picked that in the last 21 days, Ryan O'Reilly and Sam Reinhart have combined for 20 wins. And in the last 787 days, Jack Eichel has 20 wins. You have to go back to February 27th of 2020 to get to 20 wins ago for Eichel. And meanwhile, Reinhart and O'Reilly, like the Blues are on a 9-game win streak. The Panthers are on an 11-game win streak. It's like all the other former Sabres.
You're going to make wins a stat for centers?
That's why I'm trolling. I'm trolling a little bit.
Yeah. No, it's funny. But
thank you for thank you though for including Sam Reinhart as a center. Appreciate it.
I just want I want to go full Dan Gilbert here. Like we'll win a championship before the so-called king ever will. We'll make the playoffs before the self-proclaimed king. Send a letter to the fans.
For those non-NBA fans that don't know what Jordan's talking about, after LeBron left for Miami way back when, Dan Gilbert, the Cavaliers owner, wrote a letter to fans saying, "We will win a championship before the self-proclaimed king." And they did not.
And they needed the self-proclaimed king to come back to win it for them.
Exactly. Yeah. But okay, so that's part of it. Like the cycle stuff that's going around right now. Like we're all kind of having fun with Vegas being down in the dumps and they're about to miss the playoffs. We're having fun with that. So that's
I care about it for our own purposes, though. We get the pick.
For the draft pick. Yeah.
Yeah, we get the pick. So like, and I want it at that specific spot because I don't want to deal with next year because I do agree with you. I think they're going to be better. So like I want to just get it out of the way. Let's get like pick 14 in here and move on.
Yeah.
Get 2 picks in the top 16. I'm happy with that.
I'm down. I'm more interested in what they've been doing because of that. I definitely am interested in part though, because Jack Eichel, after he made his comments after the Sabres game last month, became a Sabres supervillain. So that's part of the reason why I felt like it was a good time to put together these lists. But also, you know, in the NBA playoffs, like there is the ultimate supervillain, Kyrie Irving, going at it with Boston Celtics fans. And I'm not a Kyrie Irving guy. I've been all over the place on him. He was my favorite player when he was in Cleveland in the NBA. I love his style. He's the most, to this day, I appreciate watching him, I think, more than any other NBA player. I think he's a crazy person. He thinks the earth is flat. There's a lot of other stuff that he kind of goes into, not even like necessarily vaccine related. But there is that too, if you want it. So I kind of not a huge Kyrie guy anymore, but I'm like, you know what? I'm never going to be a Boston guy. I'm never going to support Boston sports. He's flipping off. He's flipping off Patriot fans. He's flipping off Bruins fans. That's how I like to think of it. So go Kyrie. go Kyrie in this series. And I love that he's kind of leaned into it. He's leaned into being the villain. So that got me to thinking, all right, Sabres villains. How many do we even have? Before we get into our lists, top 5 Sabre villains of all time, how hard was this for you to do? Like, were you getting to 3 or 4 and you're like, I'm kind of forcing it a little bit?
I'm definitely like, I guess, forcing it a little bit. You'll probably laugh at one of mine, maybe 2 of them. But I wanted to keep it. I only have one from not my era, so to speak. But I wanted to keep it to stuff that I kind of know. There are some guys that I left off the list. I don't want to drop any names in case you have them. But there are maybe a few players that are like, they're just not. I left them off the list because they're not important enough.
All right. Yeah.
Although there are people that I hated on other teams.
I like that. I want your own personal flair on it. So we'll get to that right when we come back. Our top 5 Sabres villains of all time. And then at the later portion of today's show, we will preview the Sabres matchup on Thursday night with the New Jersey Devils. That is all ahead here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Before we get into any of that, betonline.net, your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Man, I have hit 2 parlays in the last week, and you know what that means? I'm going to be hitting parlays for the next 2 months and just remembering those wins. I might have 20 losses in the meantime, but I'm going to keep going because of those wins. It is a wild ride when you hit a parlay. I hit an NHL parlay the other day for the Bruins. Taylor Hall, anytime goal scorer. Bruins on the money line to win, and under 7, I think under 6.5 was the bet that I hit on. NHL parlays, super fun. BetOnline, your continued source for all your sports wagering information and live betting for the playoffs, NBA and NHL, esports, soccer. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Joe DiBiase, Jordan Hansgen, back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, at Sneaky Joe Sports on Twitter, at JR Hansgen for Jordan. All right, let's start. We'll go 5 to 1, and we'll go 5s first, then 4s, and we'll alternate. So we'll have Jordan go first. Jordan's 5th supervillain, Sabres supervillain of all time is?
I went with, this is kind of a late substitution. I originally had the Broad Street Bullies, but then I was like, I got to be more honest to myself because I wasn't around in the 70s. So I'm going with Darius Casparitis.
Ooh, okay. I thought about him.
You remember the moment?
This is game, I forget what game it is, but the Penguins overtime game-winning goal to end the Sabres in 2001?
I think it was game 6.
Okay.
No, it might have been game 7.
Okay.
It was an elimination game, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but
no,
it was an important game, and
definitely
he literally threw
it was game 7.
He threw, the Sabres were like all over him, and he literally grabbed the puck and threw it out of the arena, and then said that he just like it tipped off.
Oh, that too, right? Yep, that happened. Yeah, there is
and he's the one that scored the game winner.
And then he scored the game winner.
He's the worst. That because I think that Sabres team was sneaky good. I don't think people give that Sabres team enough credit for being as good as they were. And I think they were just as good as the Penguins. And all it takes is, you want to give Hasek as many cracks at a title as you can get him. Because you get to the Stanley Cup and you get the hot goalie. We've seen Jonathan Quick do it. We've seen plenty of goalies like carry teams. And it's like, I just feel like that was an opportunity stolen. And that's where I think the Sabres get their best villains, is opportunities stolen away from them. And so Casparitis narrowly cracked the list.
Darius Casparitis, by the way, he was playing hockey until like 3 years ago. He's 49 years old even now. He was playing in the Lithuanian league for Hockey Punks. That's the name of the team. I'm looking at it. It's on Elite Prospects. Hockey Punks.
So he was pretty young.
And
he was pretty young.
He played for Lithuania in the World Championships 3 years ago. So yeah, this guy played hockey a long time. Yeah, the Penguins, obviously in the late 90s, early 2000s is what he's known for. Game 7 winner against the Sabres in 0-1. All right, I like it. Darius Casparitis. My number 5 Sabre villain of all time, Big Z, Zdeno Chara. Booed him every time he was out on the ice. You know, the Bruins in their heyday, like he was the goon. He was the big bad bully. He is the biggest, baddest bully the Sabres have ever had. I mean, he's the biggest NHL player of all time. And the Sabres were, I think this is why, like, I don't have Brad Marchand on my list. Part of the reason is Marchand was a rookie when the Sabres were good. When they ran into each other in the playoffs, I don't even think Marchand really played. Chara is prime. The Sabres are good, but they're not. They're inferior to the Bruins. Like, the Bruins were pushing them around. They were bullying them. They were better than them. And, you know, like, hitting your head on the ceiling, not to make a Chara pun here because he's tall, like, that was the Sabres while Chara was in Boston and, like, was a Norris caliber defenseman. And he bullied everybody, right? He pushed everybody around. I remember the one time Patrick Coletta had the cleanest hit of all time on Zdeno Chara and knocked him down. And Chara, so mad, skated out to center ice. The puck, meanwhile, is like in the other zone. Coletta's about to go to the bench, and Chara just goes right for him and just drills him. And because he knew, I'm Zdeno Chara. No one's going to do anything about it. I'm 6'9". Come at me. So I think Chara is number 5. What are your memories of Chara as being the villain?
Well, for one, not only is he a Bruin, but he was also a Senator.
Right. 0506. I always
so
he's that.
he's like from all sorts of hate.
Yes.
It's like I remember when he went to the Bruins, I was like, oh, we just can't get rid of this guy, can we? Like, this guy just moves around the division. But yeah, like I think he's a great pick. The thing with him is that the one thing I'll say in his defense is that he's not overly like dirty. I don't think he's an overly dirty player. I think he's just big and annoying.
Yeah, a little hot-headed, but yeah, I wouldn't say dirty.
He was good. Like, that was the other problem, is that when he was at a like peak Chara, he was a force.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great pick, great villain in multiple ways, which I think gives you a lot of points.
Yeah, he would be I think, like, there was an Eric Stahl Sabres picture floating around the other day, and, like, remember this? This was only a year ago. How weird that was. Chara, free agent, end of the year. Just saying. That would be a weird jersey.
Is he a righty?
No, he's a lefty. He doesn't fit. All right, Jordan's number 4 Sabre villain of all time is
Milan Lucic.
We have a match. I have Lucic at number 4.
Yeah, I just think, like, I think that Sabres team was better than people gave them credit for as well. Or at least Miller was playing at a level early on in the season. And then that moment, that was the end of that group. Whatever that group had, that was it. Yeah. It got knocked out of them when Milan Lucic knocked Miller's lights out.
This play right here.
Like, that was the end of that core. Because they weren't terrible. They were actually, like, competing for the division.
And Miller gets hammered by Lucic.
The response.
Miller's down on the ice, and they ought to clean his clock.
I know they were defending him to a point, but it does sicken me. Like, it is a weak defense of that play.
Underrated
that
call
guy should be being ragdolled.
Right. And underrated call by Rick Jenneret, too. And they ought to clean his clock. It's so good.
They ought to clean his clock. It's great. But they should have. And, like, but, I was thinking, like, because I lost a ton of respect for that Sabre team that day, which hurts me to say because I did like that group.
Yeah.
But, like, the real villain here is the guy that committed the crime. I mean, Milan Lucic, that was such an unnecessary thing to do.
Yeah.
And he only did it because he knew he could, and he knew he could get away with it. Yeah. not a good guy, not a good player.
The nose too, like right, the nose, just the look.
Yeah, the look too. Yeah, he did have the look.
Just the worst. Being in Boston too, just like always like hitting the B on his chest. The worst. Famously,
He would score big goals. Like even when I would hate watch the Bruins against like other teams, he would score like big goals for them. It was so annoying.
He was a great player. We were obsessed with Zach Cassian for like 2 years before he got to the Sabres.
Thought he was going to be Lucic. We thought he would be him.
But yeah, the nose running over Miller famously. I mean, you're a Sabre villain when one of the most beloved Sabres of all time, Ryan Miller, legitimately calls you a piece of bleep after the game. Great all-time Sabre quote, Ryan Miller calling him a piece of you-know-what after the game for running him. All right, we agree on Lucic at number 4. I wonder if we have any other matches here because there's a couple guys left that I think are pretty obvious Sabre villains, but we'll see.
I would imagine we will.
Let's see.
Do you want me to go to number 3?
You go to number 3.
Brett Hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Foot in the crease.
I imagine he'll be on your list somewhere.
He is. He's on my list.
Yeah. I mean, it's the most iconic play in Sabre history, right?
Wow. Is that right? Is that right? The most iconic play in Sabre history?
I think so. If you ask, like, if you do Family Feud style and you ask 100 hockey fans, what's the most notable play in Sabre history? It's them losing that Stanley Cup on that play. Because of the controversy, because of everything around it. It's Brett Hall on Dominic Hasek, 2 of hockey greats. Like, it's an iconic moment. And I know we hate it because it's grossly unfair, but it is an iconic moment. And he has an unlikable face too.
Right.
I don't know.
He does. Oh yeah.
But yeah, like I don't really have. Everybody knows the play. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you didn't know this play.
Yeah.
So
you know what?
I don't know. I don't really have much to add to it besides that. Like it wasn't a goal. By the letter of the law, it's not a goal.
Yeah.
It's foot's in the crease.
A great story that I didn't hear until a couple years ago about that goal is Lindy went back to the locker room after the game had been over and he saw the play and he didn't know it when he was still out there. He didn't know that the foot was in the crease. He saw the play back in the locker room and Lindy stormed out of the locker room and he ran out onto the bench. Again, he returned to the bench and there was Gary Bettman presenting the Stanley Cup to the Dallas Stars, and you can't find. There's no video of it anywhere. I've looked, but there's no view of the Sabre bench while that presentation is going on. But the story, as I heard it, was Lindy is banging on the bench, screaming at Bettman. He's yelling at Bettman to come over to the bench because it's no goal, and he now knows it, and he doesn't. He doesn't want the cup awarded. There was no review back then. I don't think for that. Maybe there was. I don't even know. But
could you imagine if Bettman walked
screaming
over there?
at Bettman? Oh yeah, or if Lindy had went out into the ice or something.
Like I'm just imagining Bettman walks over there and then he goes, "My God, you're right."
Yeah,
and he says, "Put that cup away." Get these guys back their sticks and their helmets.
Yeah. But we'll get to more Brett Hull because I definitely do have him on my list. My number 3 is someone I think you might also have, Chris Neal. Neal, former Ottawa Senator. He was the worst, right? Same thing. A lot of these guys have the look. And Chris Neal had that look. He was always grinning. He had that stupid smile without the 2 front teeth. Of course, the hit on Drury that sparks the brawl. He had a lot of other run-ins with the Sabres over the year. He was kind of both the bully and kind of a rat. You know, he had the Marchand little pest stuff, but also, you know, he would fight and he would get into brawls and, you know, he wasn't good. That was the other thing. Like, he wasn't good like Marchand was or like Chara was or like Lucic was. So Chris Neal for an easy number 3 to get in here. He was growing up. He was my most hated was Chris Neal. Okay.
That's pretty good. I hated the other guy in the Senators. Do you have another Senator on your list?
I don't.
Do you remember Smolinski?
I remember the stupid smile in Game 1 in 2006.
I hated Smolinski.
Smolinski.
That was one of my guys.
He's even got a name you
he
just
was-
wouldn't like. Oh, Smolinski. That's Smolinski.
It's like
He's the worst.
Dinkelberg and Dinkelberg.
Yes, Smolinski
Smolinski.
he has Dinkelberg vibes for sure. I'm gonna put that on a poll. Does Smolinski have Dinkelberg vibes?
He does. He definitely does.
Yeah, he was the worst. I'm so glad they won that game after the fact. All right, your number 2, Jordan's number 2 villain in Buffalo Sabres history is.
It's a 2-pronged attack on the 99 Stanley Cup that was stolen. Gary Bettman's my number 2.
Wow. Okay. Tell us why.
I think he is worse. His is more egregious. He willingly gave that cup to the Stars because it benefited the hockey business.
Well, I don't know that Bettman personally knew that happened in the moment. He would have known after.
Maybe.
He would have known after, of course.
But like, weren't Sabres complaining? Like, at all?
Well,
Ever?
Lindy was yelling at him. I don't know that Lindy.
Nobody complained in the moment.
Well,
I haven't seen the play in a long time.
The Sabres did, but from the documentary thing I watched on YouTube was that Colin Campbell was really the one at the time that was kind of dealing with the Sabres. I'm not sure Bettman would have known though, and Colin Campbell probably gets his orders from Bettman, so it's fair. It's fair to put it on Bettman too.
Well, I think that's just as bad. I think
yeah.
Now I know Bettman. People might say, "Oh, he did help the Sabres stay in Buffalo when the Regises had all their malfeasance going on." But I don't know. Like, I just think like it's such a shady thing that went down. And the fact that he just ignores Lindy and just like, oh, good job, Dallas, on your great, well-earned victory. It's like, I don't know. I can't look at him and not be angry.
I thought about putting him on my list because it's funny, during the pandemic at WGR when we were just like drafting things because we had nothing else to do. One of our drafts was the I hate your stupid face draft, which is kind of what we're doing here. And I picked Bettman in the second round because I hate him. I hate him. I think he's horrible for hockey. I hate his stupid face. I like the Coyotes and, Atlanta and scoring being down and like OLN, like there's just so many things that you could hate Bettman for.
Poor
the
OLN.
Reason I could not put him on my list is because he stood by the Sabres in bankruptcy and he didn't have to do that. I think part of the reason they're still here, when they had at one time a strong bidder that wanted to move them to Portland, Oregon, I think Bettman, who was operating the team on behalf of the NHL at the time, he did not want the team to leave. And because of that, I'm not going to put him on my list. I'm going to give him credit for not letting the Sabres.
Do you want me to switch him out for Smolinski? Because I'm fine with Smolinski.
No, I think I still hate him. He did a good thing.
Yeah.
He did a good thing. He still sucks. But he deserves to be on one of the lists. One of the two.
Okay.
I think it's fair. All right. That was your number 2. My number 2 is Jack Eichel. My number 2 is Jack Eichel. I'm putting Jack Eichel all the way up at number 2. Recency bias, sure. Living in the moment. That's what I'm doing right now. Jack Eichel, I hate you. You disparaged the fan base. You took an unnecessary shot because they just beat you and you were upset and you were bitter. And it's a guy that was great and I defended and I felt betrayed that night when he said what he said. But you joined the list of guys that have kind of spoken negatively about the city. Like he's going to be on a list with Willis McGahee, one day about like talking bad about Buffalo. And he didn't necessarily do that about the city, but he did it about the fans. Like they hadn't shown up in 7 years, essentially what he said. So that being the face of a franchise, that the face of the era, the worst era in Sabres history. And I had argued that wasn't all on him. In fact, maybe none of it was on him. But now I think I could argue that. And at the end of the day, that's going to be your legacy. Like whether or not it's deserved, your legacy will be the guy who took a shot at Buffalo, a cheap shot at Buffalo, and the face of the worst era in Buffalo Sabres history. And I think I felt like I had to put a guy that kind of betrayed the team. I thought about putting Chris Drury on my list. But I think we're kind of over that, aren't we? About him leaving for the Rangers.
And the thing with Drury, too, is that he was never the same player. when he was in New York.
Also true. We
Like,
put that more on like Golisano and Regeer anyway.
For like, I did think about Eichel. But I do remember some of the good. He was an amazing player. I didn't really want to go too deep into like actual Sabre people. Like I did think of kind of some of the people that were behind the scenes of the Drury Briere debacle, like only signing Briere to a 1-year contract the year before.
Were you
like,
thinking about putting Darcy? Were you thinking about?
Well, I was
Darcy?
thinking more of like more of the people that were like the money people that were like saying like you can't spend so much.
Okay.
Like
Larry Quinn?
I just thought like the way they treated Briere was my biggest issue because Briere was like, I want to come back. I want to bring Drury back. I want to get everybody back. And Sabres like, you can't fit it in the money.
Because they had to go pay Alesh Kotelik.
I know. Stupid. I would have loved to give Pegula that team and let him start there.
I'll say this. I don't think the Pegula screwed that up.
Because they would just spent. They would have kept everybody.
That's a good
and
thought.
Maybe added people.
It's a good point. I've never thought of that. That's definitely right though. I've never thought about that. Pegula buys the team 4 years earlier.
They inherited a team that was kind of on the down. And they didn't know how to build it up. Like, and they thought they were a bit too arrogant, I guess you could say, with their knowledge of the game. Hopefully they're on the right track now. But
did you think about putting them on this list?
No, not in the slightest.
Me neither.
No.
I think about.
I think they mean well. They're just not that good at it.
Yeah.
like I do think they do want to be successful with the Sabres. Like, I don't think they're actively sabotaging the team.
Yeah, I didn't think about putting the Pagulas on here. I did think about putting the Regises on here though.
Yeah. They're more their crime was against humanity, not
against the law of the United States. Like
actual human beings.
Right.
Yeah.
They did but listen, part of the reason why was they put the team at risk. Like the team never came closer to leaving than it did in 2003. And the reason that it came close to leaving in 2003 was because they went and got themselves arrested for corporate crimes, white collar crimes. They're still in jail, right? They're alive.
You ready for my number one?
All right, Jordan Hansgen. His number one Sabre villain of all time.
Roll, please.
Is
Staphylococcus.
Huh?
That was wasn't that what happened to Jay McKee?
Oh, wow. We're doing this?
The number one enemy to the Sabres. The number one thing that cost the Sabres the Stanley Cup was a staph infection.
You're putting staph infection number one as your Sabre villain of all time?
Yes, it is the number one Sabre villain.
So stupid. It's so good though. It's stupid, but it's great. It's great. I love it.
There is nothing that I can point to besides maybe because Game 7 we would have to win Game 6 and then Game 7 in '99.
Yeah.
If Jay McKee plays the full Carolina series, I think we win.
Mm-hmm. No, that's right. I agree.
And then we play Rolly the goalie. Like I think we'll win. The number one thing that cost the Sabres was Staphylococcus.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I accept it. I like it. It cost them a Stanley Cup. Did you think at all about like putting like a Peter Schaefer in here, another senator that ended Tim Connolly? I mean, they maybe win that series even without the defenseman if Connolly's healthy.
That's probably true too. I thought about him, but I thought it would be more fun.
That's the only thing I know him for, though. Like I know he was on the Senators for a while, but my number one, by the way, is Brett Hull. We already talked about Brett Hull, so we don't need to do much more on that. But my number one is Brett Hull, foot in the crease.
That would be a good poll. What's the worst Sabre villain, Brett Hall or Staphylococcus?
Well, if you could change one thing in history, what do you do? Do you?
I would rather have Jay McKee healthy, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'm actually good with or Peter Schaefer not killing Connolly.
Right, because the Sabres need to win one more game against Carolina and then beat Edmonton. The Sabres in '99, they got to win Game 6 in overtime. If the refs catch the foot in the crease and they say keep playing, The Sabres got to win overtime game 6, and then they've got to go win in Dallas game 7. And I honestly,
and that Stars team was real good.
Yeah. So like, what do you want? One
good.
game for the 99 team to win one game in Dallas, or the 06 Sabres to win one game in Carolina and then beat
Edmonton? Beating Edmonton, I think, would have been the easiest thing in the world.
Okay. All right.
I don't think it would have been hard.
Were there any other Hurricanes you thought about? Mike Commodore.
Any other Hurricane villain?
Mike Commodore with his stupid
I was thinking of
hair.
Brind'Amour. I really did not like
Brind'Amour is good. Cam Ward is definitely a
Martin
guy for
Gerber is on that list too. That guy stole games.
Yeah.
that guy was great.
And obviously we have very recent lists. We're young guys. We're both 26 years old.
Yeah.
You did mention who did you mention? One of the old timers.
I was thinking of the Broad Street Bullies.
Broad Street Bullies. You mentioned the Broad Street Bullies, but like others that like deserve reference here. Brad Park of the Boston Bruins in the 80s, who scored in a game 7, I believe, against the Sabres. And then Bobby Clark. I mean, that's part of really the Broad Street Bullies, but Bobby Clark was, I know, hated by Sabre fans. Claude Lemieux was hated by everybody, and that includes Sabre fans. Ty Domi. Is Ty Domi a villain, though? Like, at the time, like, he just fought Rob Ray every game. Does that make him a villain?
I think he's, like, entertainment, like, to be honest.
Yeah,
I never had, like, a real bad anger with the Leafs. Because I never went to a Sabre Leaf game. So I don't know the experience the way some fans do.
Yeah.
Like, how awful it is. Because I always just think of the Leafs as, like, Ponikarovsky. And, like, they're really bad.
Yeah.
Or like Darcy Tucker. Like, is Darcy Tucker a villain? He's annoying, but he was terrible.
He took out Jochen Hesch that one time.
He did.
Oh, Lindy's rant. Can I find that in time before we end here? We're gonna save, by the way, the Devils preview for tomorrow.
Lindy defending his favorite player.
Yeah. Where is it? Here it is. Yeah. Tucker took out Hesch in a game against the Leafs in 2006. And this was Lindy's response in post game.
We totally outworked them, and it's unfortunate we had to be done in by a cheap shot late in the game by Tucker.
Did Jochen get hurt on that? Was it a
knee? Knee-on-knee hit. He goes after his head. He dives afterwards. He's known as a diver. He couldn't take the hit that we gave him, so he knocks our guy out of the lineup for probably weeks. That's a joke. I want him suspended. I want him fined. I'll come to the hearing. I haven't called the league once. I'll call him 10 times tomorrow. If you go knee on knee and take a shot at a guy's head at the same time, you don't deserve to be in the game. We're going to the playoffs, and you're going to take out one of our best players because you couldn't take a hit? That's a joke.
How'd that make you feel?
That's an absolute joke is what it is.
We've seen enough of this season.
It's a joke.
We've seen enough of him that it's a joke. He dove early in the game. He dove on Jochen, and he took his knee out, and he gave him a headshot. And we get a penalty on the play? That's a joke. That's the definition of a joke right there. He can take his knee, he can go after his head, and we get the penalty on the play?
It's so good.
Because he's reacting because he got hit, and the officials don't see that? That is a joke.
Is it going to be long-term, Lindy?
It's long-term. It's long-term. You go after a guy's head, they've already made the rules. You go after a guy's head, you're suspended. He went after his head, he took his knee out, suspend him. Get him out of the game. I've had enough of that. It's a joke is what it is.
How
we'll walk off at the end.
Pain did you get from Lindy calling Jochen Hesch one of the team's best players?
Not enough. I was too focused on him yelling, "I'll come to the hearing."
I mean, Jochen Hesch was Lindy's guy. Lindy would go to bat for Jochen Hesch day in, day out.
Yeah.
That I would love off season. We could add this to the list. Top like Sabre coach moments.
Oh yes, they're all going to be
Lindy's guy. It's going to be a Lindy.
It's going to turn into the top 5 Lindy moments.
Lindy's got wild moments. I'm thinking Jordan Tutu. I'm thinking.
Yeah, but obviously
Ken
against
Hitchcock,
Brian Murray. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones.
Coach his own team.
All right. Speaking of Lindy Ruff's New Jersey Devils. That's who the Sabres got on Thursday night. We went really late. We had a lot of fun with our Sabre villains list. So we're gonna save the Devils preview for tomorrow's episode before the game. So come back for that. And be sure to follow us on Twitter. I'm at Sneaky Joe Sports. Jordan's at JR Hansgen. We also, before we get out of here, want to remind you that our podcast is brought to you by rockauto.com. Save time and money. I bought wipers there from a couple weeks ago, about a month ago now. They're working great. I've had no problems. I should have gone to Rock Auto first before I did the chain store. I went to the chain store. They didn't have it. I went to Rock Auto. Boom, right there. And it's at my house in a couple of days. Do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They've got everything you need. Brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, new carpet, really whatever you need. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. We will talk to you tomorrow here on Locked On Sabres. Be sure to like and subscribe us on YouTube and follow us on Twitter. Talk to you tomorrow.